Good morning. Kumlana Blat Gemara, Yutas Kislev. Today's daf is daf Pei Vov. So the last thing we learned was an argument between Rebbe and the Chachamim. If the parts of the animal that was separated, like the hair, the bones, and all that, whether they belong on the Mizbeach or not. And the Chachamim say that even if they separated, you leave them on the Mizbeach. And Rebbe says no. Because one pasuk it says that you should put everything on the mizbeach, and the other pasuk says the basar and the dam, only the flesh and the blood. So he said if it's attached to the animal, you leave them on the mizbeach. If it's detached, you don't. And even if it's already sitting on the mizbeach, you remove them. So let's continue the Gemara right in about 15 lines on the top of the page or 2 dots. Pirshu, if it's separated, lo yalu, you don't bring it back. That's the view of Rebbe, that you don't bring it back. And not like the Tanakama, who says that you do. Amar Reb Zayda, lo yishanu ela shepirshu, when we said it's separated klapi mata, away from the mizbech, away from the fire. Avo klapi ma'ila, if there was pirshu, separate animal, but in the direction of the fire, then faket krevu da krivu lichul, then it got closer to be burned through, and then you put it back. Now there's 2 ways looking at the Gemara here, whether the Gemara is full of pirshu. Is it a question? On Rab Zayda saying in the name of Rebbe, because Rebbe said if it's separated, you don't make no difference, or this is a statement and we're following Chachamim. Shittik Betzin learns it's a statement following Chachamim, so let's learn that way. It just fits into the words better. So the Chachamim said, Afilu Pirshu, even if it's separated, you got to put it back on the Mizbech. Amar Rabba lays down a proviso. This is how you understand the Chachamim. When do we say that they hear no that separated? You put it back. Lo yishanu ela shepirshu la'achazrika. That you sprinkle the blood, and by an oil, now it continues being part of the Beis Hamikdash. Then you say you put it on the mizbech. It belongs on the mizbech. The entire animal goes on the mizbech. But because it says v'hikted in the pasuk clearly, v'hikted is hakoil hamizbech. The only reason why Rebbe says differently, it could be have a stira from another pasuk, basar v'dam. He had to reconcile the two, attached or detached. The Chachamim do something else with basar v'dam, that you have to put it back on or not. That if it popped off and it was already, you have to put it back on or not. Even though it was equal already, but that's that. So according to Chachamim, after the zrika, you have to. It's kodesh has to go on the mizbech. Avol pirshu kodim zrika. If these parts, the hair, the bones, and all that, if these parts were separated from the animal prior to the zrika, that means it had no attachment to the animal when you did the kapara part, the zrika, the essential part here. Then asya zrika v'sharitinu. Then comes along the zrika and says, well, you have nothing to do with the animal, and therefore even the chacham will be made. Then it has nothing to do with the animal, nothing to do with the mizbech. You don't put it on the mizbech at all. And now we should continue. The amata you afilu lemevid mina. You cut the sakina. You can make it what do you call it? A cover for a knife, or a handle for a knife, or a handle for the sheath for the knife, or a handle for a knife. So therefore, there's no problem here whatsoever. So in other words, it makes a chiluk between achazika and peidim zika. That's what the Rabbah says. and then Taisus and the Shem have a problem. Then why we had a whole sugi in Rosh Hashanah. That what do you call it? If you blew a shofar from an oiler, it said you shouldn't do it. But if you did it, you're yaitze because you were moil, and by being moil, you change it from if you did it b'shegig. There's no meal by mace. It's only if you moil b'shegig, then what happened was it's no longer kodesh, it's chulin. So, but the evidence all right. L'chayda, we just said over here that after the shofar, which is l'chayda, like the hair and like the bones and everything else, is not part of the animal. Is not part of the animal. So what's pshat? So Rashi didn't discuss it, but Taisus here wants to say that it must be talking about the Gemara there that you didn't have a carbon oiler. You set aside money for entire carbon oiler, and then you took some of that money and you decided to buy a shofar with it. That's what we're talking about over there. So the money itself is kodesh, but once you're a mile, you're a mile. Yeah. The Gemara, because here's a you make a cut to the sakino. Unless over there it's talking about that you only did it after the zrika, that you only took the thing off after you split the blood. So there's meila there. No, it's still kodesh. And back to the Gemara. It says the Gemara. Sabali holds God Rabbi Yechon Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. It says in the pasuk, by it says the kohen is makiv the oil. It says that what like kohen lo year that the oil the hide of the oil goes to the kohen lo year, and then it says by an osham the same thing. It says osham. It says what ashichapo lo year belongs to him. He eats the meat and everything else. Is ma osham atzmoisem mutarin, the bones are mutter. Is af oila atzmois mutarin. So it's over here also that by a carbon oila the bones are mutter. The bones are not part of the animal, and therefore they are mutter. Says the Gemara. Remember, we have the thing that in order for Gzeir Shabbat, there's three kinds of Gzeir Shabbat, where it's not extra at all both sides, where it's extra mitzad echad on one side, or it's extra mitzad two sides. If it's extra on both sides, you can't ask any questions. The Rebbe should put it in there to teach your lesson. If it's extra on one side, you can ask questions. If it's not extra at all, you can learn or not. But here you must say mufta that's extra, because others have an obvious question. You can ask a question. Malosh, you know why by an oshram the bones are mutter? She came son mutter. You not even eat the meat. So what Rashi learns is a kavuchera. Madach you not eat the meat. Surely you not eat the bones. You not have enough from the bones. So what are you learning from them? Mashen came by an oiler, which the meat is also right. Kula kol, everything gets burnt. Who said the bones become mutter? Maybe the bones are also as well. So we answer that lo yiyah you say it eksiv. In fact, that lo yiyah is actually extra. It could have just said oid ha'oila asher hikiv lakoin. You don't have to say lo yiyah goes to him. By saying here, lakoin makav is oila sish oid ha'oila asher hikiv lakoin, then you know lakoin means it goes to the coin.
The what? The bones and the.
We're talking about the oil, which is
only to separate the thing.
Yeah, we're talking about separate, yeah. So the lo yiyah is extra, so therefore we learn Gzeir Shabbat that the bones also belong. Yeah, so the hide you have to strip off, yes. So lo yiyah.
No, the bones do beyond.
So I'm just saying, if the bones are porous, you can take them and you can keep them. So we said according to Chachamim, if you took it off before the zrika, talking about you took it off before the zrika, so then the zrika is matter completed to the coin. If it happened after the zrika, according to Rabbi, it became property in the mizbech, and you cannot take the bones. Most of Rabbi, he asked a question. At some is kochim lifnei zrika. It says it general kochim the bones of general kochim before you zaydik it. Remember, kochim kadosh in the moment you made it holy belongs to the mizbech. Lachas zrika, but after you sprinkled. Ein moilin behen, only the parts that go to the bech is continues the mila, but everything else because mutter to the kohen there's no longer any mila. But when it comes to an oila, it says it clearly moilin behen la'olam. It sounds like regardless of when you took the bone the parts out, you're always moil. You just said that if you did it before the zrika, there's no longer mila. Right? If you took the bones out before the zika is matzah, it says here lo'ilam. I don't care when it did it. Amos says, who said it's talking about we don't care when you took the extracted the bones. Amos say v'shaloila. This is how you read. Oila depends. If you remove the bones before you did zika, then aim oila bani. Right? The zika is matzah completely. You can even make a handle for a knife. When it says over here, moilin lo'ilam is. If he did it after Zika, since it was already during the Zika, it was shaykh to the Mizbech, the Mizbech now owns it, then Moilim ben La'olam. They're always Moil. And you should know that Pliga de Rabbi this argues on 2 points, at least according to Rashi. Tastes is only one. 2 points. Rabbi says, he says, Pinshul lifnei Zika, you Rabbi said that if you took it away, if you took the bones off before the Zika comes and says, look, you have nothing to do with the carbon, it was matzah completely. No, you're moil till the zika, but once you do the zika is matzah completely, I say pir zika moilimem. You're always moil because the zika can't be mattered. Since the zika cannot be mattered, it started out being kodesh, right? Even Abba agrees, started out being kodesh, but when you do the zika, it establishes that this has nothing if it's separated. It has nothing to do with the animal, and therefore you do whatever you want. Rabbi has proof against. He says that the animal started off kodesh. Since the zika is not going to be mattered. Because it's not negating the zbech. That's it. How are you going to take away that kedusha? So you're moil oilam. That's point number 1. He argues. Point number 2. You said that if you did zrika and it was still attached. So it shied the mizbech, and then afterwards it got detached. You said that's it. It's part of the mizbech, and you're moil oilam. I say puvaket la'acha zrika, but after the zrika was mat to that. Is loy the drabonon loy nenin, but mahatoida loy moilin. There's no meal anymore, because he learns from a loy year that the bones belong to the kohen. Because he says it goes together with that's it. Lo yit. You look from Hashem Chatzah that the bones are mutter. Same thing over here. Because when by carbon Hashem, when did it become mutter? Only after the zika. So if you can learn as a shavu lo year, so he learns the same thing by noila. But punkt verkehrt for punkt the opposite of rabba. But that now zika becomes mutter because lo year afterwards it becomes mutter. Mishnah. The Kulan, all of these all of these Rashi learns the Kulan means side. All the cases we said that they were apostle. Nevertheless, once it was on the you leave it on there, and things which are kosher, the chatzil you're supposed to put on there. Is Kulan shepokol mizbech. All those things that you remove from the mizbech, lo yachze. So because Rashi learns we're talking about kosher things as well, Rashi says lo yachze means you don't have to put it back. Not that you're not allowed to put it back. You don't have to put it back. Likewise, gachelis a coal, one of the coal. Shepokah goes back. Let's jumped off the mizbeach. Lo yachzi, you don't have to put it back. Evodim shepoku melgab mizbeach. Those evodim that fell off the mizbeach koydem chatzais before midnight. We'll soon see exactly what we're talking about here. Is yachzi, you got to put it back. Umoilin behen, and you're still moil because it hasn't burned through, and it's not called equal yet. It's not called that you've nasa mitzvasan, you didn't complete it yet, it still has to burn. After chatzais lo yachse, you don't have to put it back anymore, and the job was done. It's as if to do with a clock. Now, you would think that the equal, not equal, depends. Did the fire burn through it? Then it's equal, and therefore you're no longer moil. And if the fire did not burn through it, then you didn't finish the mitzvah yet. And I don't care what time of the night it is. If a fellow, we got to put it back on because you got to make it equal, and you're still moil. Yet the Mishnah seems to be saying there's a time. What does the time have to do with anything?
I'm wondering if maybe it's because they don't do korbanos kanal.
Some of these are the avodim that they do this by night.
So this was geschachten during the day.
Yeah.
And went on the mizbeach. How many hours is required for a piece of meat to burn?
Whatever it is.
Maybe they're saying until chatzos you can be certain by that time it will burn. But before chatzos maybe it hasn't burned yet.
It's kind of like after chatzos. I don't care, regardless of how much was burnt.
No, he's definitely setting a barrier. So
we're going to learn the Gemara later. There's different kinds of avodim. Generally, we're going to learn that if it burned through, I don't care what time it is going to be. If it burned through, you're no longer moil. It's called equal. If it's not burned through, then I don't care what time it is. You got to leave it. That's fantastic. You got to leave it up there until whatever it is. We're talking about a specific case. It's called shriri, which is it's tough. It's tough. So even though you sort of burnt through the surface, there's still some lachluchis inside, and there we make a timetable. As we'll soon see. Says the Gemara, that's what the Mishnah talking about here. Kishem Shem is Mekadosh, just like the Mizbeach is Mekadosh, anything that belongs in we had in the Mishnah. But did it be opened up a few days ago? Kach HaKevish, the ramp does the same thing. We learned that the Kevish is like the Mizbeach, Mekadosh. And Kishem Shah Mizbeach VeHaKevish Mekachin, just like both of those we established, the Mekadosh, whatever goes on top of them. Esar roll if it's suitable. Kach hakelim mikachin. So to the kelim also mikadosh, whatever you place inside the service kelim of the Beis Hamikdash. Something about it. Hey chidami, this thing about chatzais, what are we talking about? If there's still flesh and there's substance and then they get burnt through, then I feel then even that's a chatzais. You got to put it up there, and you still haven't mekayim yedidin of equal, and it should be moil. If you use it, it still belongs to the Beis Mizbech. It didn't turn to ash yet or coal. And he's lesbo mamish, and if there is already burnt through, then I feel kind of chatzais nami. What does chatzais have to do with anything? We're talking about it here. We're talking about a case here. B'shriri. We're talking about shriri, which is tough, and the fire did char it, and but it did not turn to coal yet because there's still something left inside there. Non-immediately. So how do you know the chatzais has a bearing over there? Amarav. Okay, there's a kosef. Kosef echelem. One pasuk says kol halayla. It says amaytam mizbeach, and there it says kol halayla adabaker. All night long. No, you can burn it all night long. And the next pasuk says the hiktir Sorry, the idea is, and you burn it. So vehikta, it doesn't say in the pasuk anywhere vehikta. Just the idea is a vehikta, you can burn it all night long. Because of the and the next pasuk says, Kol halayla all night long, they hate him. You remove the ashes. Now it doesn't say Kol halayla next pasuk, because this pasuk is Kol halayla. But because the next pasuk is involved and continues, the kohen puts on his clothes and he goes ahead and he removes the ashes. It doesn't say remove the ashes in the morning. It just says and removes the ashes. It sounds like the same Kol halayla goes on both. The Kol halayla you can burn, and Kol halayla you remove the ashes. How does that work? So therefore, chilkeyu, you split it in half. Chetze lahaktorah, the chetze laharama. Half is for Haktorah, and half the night you burn. So, but which kind? No, but we're not going to apply the way Rashi is going to here. We're not going to apply this all to all limbs. It's only those which are shridi. Only those that the outside was charred, but inside it still hasn't been charred through yet. It's not really cold yet. Most of kind of asked a question, so you're telling me it's a Kosovo as midnight. It says B'chol Yom every day. When did they remove the ashes? Mikrais together. Because it was either a person screaming out over there or Pashat when the rooster does this crowing. Or around that time, little fun of a machos, not an exact time. It's not exact science around there. The Yom Kippurim on Yom Kippur b'chatzos. We bring it forward midnight. A lot of work to be done. I was going to say the Gemara and bring it forward. But a golem on Yom Tovim, when you have so many eating coming kabbanas, you want to get the mizbeach ready. Remember, there's ashes, heaps of ashes. And on Yom Tov, we used to put all the ashes in the middle of the mizbeach. There's to be a big mound, saw upon saw upon saw of ashes. A lot of work. Is bashmoilish and shayna. Machlekes and Binam Socher was the three parts of the night, or 4 parts of the night, but the end of the very first part, whatever part that is. Now, the is Hagadat B'chatzos the Raisa. If you tell me the Chatzos is the Raisa, hey, how can you be makdimit? So it sounds like the most understanding here that the Luchayr is not just shiri, like all things you shouldn't do before Chatzos. Exactly. So it sounds like the Harama of that should never be before Chatzos, because the pasuk says Chilkeyu. That's what it sounds like. Bavakasha here on Yom Tov they brought it Tashmor Shayna. That's before Chatzos. Amar Bechon. Now, big machlek is Rashi and Taisus whether you say Elo Rabbi Yechon is arguing or Amar Yechon. So the way Rashi learns is no Elo. Rabbi Yechon is explaining what we said, what Rav said before, or explaining that shitta, and that's Taisus learns that they're actually arguing. Amar Rabbi Yechon. B'mash mashenema kol halayla. On the one hand, you have a pasuk that says kol halayla. That's right. Al moik damazbeir kol halayla means you burn it all night. So why does it say kol halayla ad haboker? Don't I know kol halayla means all night till the morning? Why does it say ad haboker in the pasuk? Why does it say till the morning? That the morning is very loose, very flexible, very fluid. You can make your morning whenever you want. 10 boiker l'boker shalayla. You can decide when the morning. You can bring your morning earlier in, and call that morning. And this is how the Chacham decide as follows. Kol yom generally throughout the year is mikreis again sagi. It's enough time. Clear the mizbeach, ready for your carbon oilers tamid. The carbon tamid shachris. An yom kippur mishum chulsha the kohen gadol. Because the weakness of the Kohen Gadol is mechatzos. Now, the way it seems clearly from the Gemara right here, clearly is, we know that the activities of Yom Kippur was done by the Kohen Gadol. Did he do the Trumas Hadeshin as well? That's clearly here he did. No, because he was shvach, so we wanted that he should be able to do it midnight and then go back to have a rest before he does the rest of the activities of the day. As Rashi says clearly, Yom Kippurim, Rashi clearly says here, it's his duty to do every avodah, the ikachulsha, and he's weak. The tzarich lahagdim yaisi, you got to bring it forward. So Rashi holds that the kohen gadol Trumas Hadeshin. Tosis brings that the other Rishonim disagree, so they either erase this part for the Gemara chulsha the kohen gadol, because it wasn't the kohen gadol who did the Trumas Hadeshin. Trumas Hadeshin was not, and the Rai is, how come he doesn't go to mikveh then, when you list all the 5 tefillas and the 10 changes of clothing, we don't include this avodah here, because it was done by ordinary kohenim. But others say that no, leave the words chulsha the kohen gadol here. Hitaka did not do the Trumas Hadeshin, but because he's weak, we want him to start have an early morning, so that because in the morning he's still strong. He's not hungry yet, so let him do as many avodas as he can as early as possible. So the mizbeach should be prepared very early, so he can get a crack of dawn and start everything. That's what chulsha kohen gadol is. Not like that, but actually clearly learns here that the kohen gadol did everything. Wow. Okay. What?
Where they talks about how they had make a bias, they make a lottery to do the haramas.
That's throughout the year, not in Yom Kippur. But the other Rishonim say it was in Yom Kippur as well. Yeah, that's exactly what the Machlekes is. Excuse me, weiter. And Beragolim, the Nefishi Karbonis, there's so many Karbonis. The Kadmi, and people come early, also Yisrael, the Kadmi, also Yisrael. A lot of Yidden want to be first. The worst time to ever go somewhere is to be when they open the doors, because that's when it's the busiest. Everybody wants to be first. If you wait an hour, nobody there.
Unless you're actually the first to get there first.
Ah, that's true. That is true.
You wait up and
Excuse me. By the time we got to Kreis HaGeva, the Azora on Yom Tov was packed. Couldn't even get in. Everybody came there with their kabbanas ready to do their job. Okay, now we have Itma. We learned what happens if Pirshu Kaidem Chatzos. What happens if this thing was Pirush before Chatzos, the Shuridi? Remember, Chatzos is the critical factor here. But it was not on the Mizbeach during Chatzos. Right? The Mishnah says that you need Chatzos. What happens? It fell off before Chatzos. So so therefore it's not equal. You got to put it back on, but you put it back on after Chatzos. It missed the Chatzos. Is it like it has to be Chatzos on top of the Mizbeach? Is Rabbah Chatzos Shein? Yes, it has to be Chatzos. You got to wait now to the following night before we consider it equal. That means until the following night, if you use this, you are going to be moyel. If you use the shiridi for anything, you're going to be moyel. So you have to make sure it's on the Mizbeach the following midnight. Rav Chizah said no. In that case, Amud HaShachar Cholton, like anything else. Amud HaShachar turns it into equal. No, it's between Chatzos and Amud HaShachar. Tak, I agree with you that it's not considered equal. No, because it's very hard to have it equal here because it's charred on the outside, very hard to have the inside. So that's why the Chatzos does it. Or if the Chatzos do it, Amud HaShachar definitely does it. I'll prove it to you. But my time with Rav Chizah, what's this for Rav Chizah? Interesting case is that Beit Rav was Rav Huna. We had Morrison Head at the end of the first Pedic, all those names, who are they? Beit Rav is Rav Huna. Rav Huna is Rav Chizah's teacher. So Beit Rav Huna is saying, what's this for my Talmud? So Tejas tries to work out what exactly does it mean here. And he said, when Rav Chizah said it, Rav Huna probably was together with Rav Chizah and he said it, and they're just talking out loud. They're teasing it out for themselves. So like, what's our reason? And you just, give him credit to Rav Chizah because we have a few Gemaras where Rav Huna praises Rav Chizah how sharp he is. Let's look at the negative. When you even nicer, if you leave it on the ground, only when it hits the morning and it's still there on the ground, it becomes nicer. But midnight garnished. Is ma'ad chatzos that has no bearing on things which are on the ground. Elina, oisa equal. Yet, if you had on the shiridi, which never burns through, you can't burn through really all the way through. What makes it equal? Only when it's there sitting on chatzais. So amud hashachar, that's much more powerful. Shoisa lina. That if something's not on the mizbech sitting on the ground, the amud hashachar turns that into nicer. Is ein adin shois equal? Then surely the amud hashachar should also have the power to turn that shiridi into an equal and say you're no longer moil. That's his svara. So similar principle machlek is pirshu kaidim chatzais the hechzin lachar amud hashachar. So what happens if it was not a mizbech before chatzais, but when do you put it back after amud hashachar? So according to that, was no problem. Remember, I said before, you got to wait till the next chatzos anyway. So no problem. You wait, you take a mile until the next chatzos. The next chatzos come along. It's on the mizbeach. There's an equal here. It has to be on the mizbeach. According to Rabbi Rav Chizah. Rabbi Machatzos ain't yocholfen. Rav Chizah said that's it. Ain't behen equal oiler. Rav Chizah says that what? That there's no equal here at all until you mamish turn it into ash. Coalsman, it has like wood inside. It's not yet coal or ash. It's there's equal here. Because you missed the 2 times, either chatzos or amud hashachar.
Is the kohen allowed to, when it's shredding, is the kohen allowed to break open a piece of flesh in order to let?
It's not flesh, this is outside. But this
in the state, it's like we're calling it.
Yes, but we're saying it's not coal and break it open to what? To help it burn.
Make it better. When you open it up, expose it to the fire more.
Good question.
I'm saying with they have all those tools there, the yoim, the mazlegim, and the.
Yeah, but that was not meant for that. But
that's scraping up the ashes. But is
he allowed to? Is he allowed to break it open so it should burn better? I don't know. I don't know. Even if there's a chance, he'll tell us. Maskil Rabbi Yisrael asks, "Uman lein malon." Your whole premise, I don't understand. You're assuming that it has to be sitting on the mizbech, machlekes the chatzos, or even amud hashachar. Why does it have to be on the Mizbeach? Why can't it be on a man lame along the Chatzos Barosh Mizbeach B'Shavlikol? That what? That you have to wait until Chatzos and it should be on the Mizbeach by Shiri. Just like when it comes to Neisel, the Lina. It sits on the floor, it comes in with a shachar, turns it into Lina. Maybe this Chatzos. Remember, we're saying that it did not turn into a full coal, right? The outside is charred, but the inside is still like wood. It's not really a coal, not really ashes. So maybe the chatzais is the costume that comes chatzais, it automatically turns equal. Who said it has to be sitting on the mizbeach? Maybe anywhere. In fact, sholchu mitam, the seven Israel, hilchos of Rabbi Yosef. It doesn't. If it got separated from the animal before chatzais, it brought it back after chatzais, no longer mile. Even though it didn't burn, why it didn't burn? Why not moil? Because chatzos came along and fixed it up. They can't talk about Pirish kaid chatzos. If it's separate for chatzos, we have zin and you brought it back. Chatzos. There's no longer meal anymore. It doesn't have to be sitting on the mizbeach. Comes chatzos. So I'm going to pop Labaya. Let's finish the sugi. Papa said Labaya. I don't understand. After you have all these great rabbis who all say it doesn't have to be sitting on the mizbeach, what in the world is the Rabbi L'Pchiza on about? That if it's not on the mizbeach during chatzos, what happens? When Shachar does it, you got to wait until chatzos. Who cares where it is? First of all, they said Allah Rabbi Yosef. Number one. Number two, a colleague of theirs. That what? That the halach Rabbi is like Rabbi Yosef. Is it Rabbi Rabbi? My pligi. What are they arguing about? Who cares where it is? They all agree Chatzai does it. No, they're saying it has to be on the mizbech. Why? Amalei. You know what they're talking about here? They're talking about bish shmeinim. That is full of fat on there, and because it's full of fat on there. That's not the case of shriri that we were talking about over there. That comes chatzais because it's still fat. It's not just that it burnt the outside and the inside is still wood. It's not yet coal. It's much more than just that. There's still fat that has to be burnt, so there's no equal yet. And because the shuman does not allow it to turn into a piece of coal or a piece of ash, so then you need the chatzais on top of the mizbeach. Or shmanim, we're coming out to Chanukah. Shmanim, the word kislev. They say kislev is all about Chanukah because the lamed vav is 36 candles line of Chanukah, and kof samach is 80. 80 is shmeina, which is shemen, oil. So it's the oil for the 36 lights. That's the name kislev. Shemen is oil. Shmeina. Shmeina. Or shmeinim. Shmeinim is shmanim. Okay, and you take all the vav. It's not my word. It's a famous Belshur. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Have a good yom tov. We'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.